What's up, Shane?
I should ask him to post some wins so we can talk about it.
The guys, like, you're not gonna, unless you call in, which you can only do on desktop. We're gonna have to share through the chat box here. So, lead us off. So, any wins?
Post some wins
Gratitude.
while they're posting. You got any wins, Nick?
Yeah, the varsity lacrosse team my daughter plays for us 3-0 and looked really good. So it was a fun week last week watching them kick off their season. Got to go to opening day. That was pretty sweet.
How was that place you were at?
Oh, so I have an attorney friend who I went to his March Madness get together at his law firm, and he invited me to opening day, and they got the box seats and a Truist Club, and so I got to do that, and that was much more bougie than
Is that like the best one in the ballpark, probably? Like the best spot?
perspective.
Yeah.
You know, I like sitting in the outfield, but I go into this place. So you go to the front of the stadium, and I'm standing there because you take the elevator up to the Truist Club, and standing behind me is Zay Flowers, waiting to get on the elevator. And then the elevator doors pop open, and who's the first person standing there? David Rubenstein. He goes where he ordered.
Yeah.
So I get in the elevator with him, and I'm like, well, there's billions of dollars in this elevator right now.
So that is the best spot.
The head coach of the Ravens was up there, and I grab a plate of food. I sit down, and I just kind of glance over to the table next to me, and it's a couple guys sitting there, and it's Josh Charles, the actor.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely a who's who up there. So it was kind of cool.
Just eating some sushi, trying to see who you're sitting next to.
Yeah, not making a big deal.
I think so we got one win in here. TikTok content. Hell yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Love that.
Just received a top offer net listing.
Okay, somebody's been busy.
Yeah.
Love it.
If you can, in short words, as best as you can, tell us how you got that person from TikTok, just to let other people know,
You can only use short words.
Yes.
Like 5 letters or less.
That's it.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
5 letters or less per word.
But just let us know what type of content you posted. Did they comment? Did they DM you? How that worked, because that's something that we're all trying to kind of figure out here as we move on in this day and age.
All right, Brooke. Brooke, you have a good start to your year. Not that you haven't before, but it seems like you're having a really good start this year. I'm not surprised though. You work really hard.
Love the wins.
That's awesome. I mean, that's it. Just speaks to being active and being present.
Do you want to talk about your call?
Yeah. What call?
For the person who I follow.
Sure. It could be something that we talk about too.
Yeah.
So last Tuesday, I'm at a friend's mom's funeral. Brady was in attendance as well. And I get a call, and you know now with iPhones, you can see where it says potential spam, and it sometimes says a name. Well, it said a name, and so I decided to pick it up walking out of his funeral. And it was this guy, introduced himself, and he said, my wife and I just moved from Oklahoma, and we want to buy a house. Could you help us? I don't know why. I asked to call him back just because I was finishing up at the funeral. I didn't want to be rude. But when I hung up, I couldn't help but think like it could be spam. I don't know, like some kind of fraudulent call.
Let's hop on a Zoom call.
Yeah, because I get those emails. I think we've all got those emails. So I call this guy back like 45 minutes later. He doesn't answer, and I leave a voicemail. And I'm like, okay, this is definitely some kind of spam.
Yeah.
He ends up calling me back, and I'm like, listen, before we get started, I just gotta. Were you referred to me? Like, how did you come across me? And he said, oh, he goes, AI. And I know this stuff is happening, but this is the first time it's happened to me. And he went through exactly what he did. He said it took him about 8 minutes to narrow it down to me. But he asked for expertise in northern Baltimore County, northwest Baltimore County, Carroll County, somebody that takes kind of a data approach to help people make aggressive offers. Like, he went through the whole prompt, and he asked for 25 agents. He got 25 agents, and then he prompted it to narrow it down to the top 12. And then AI narrowed it down to the top 12. And then without being prompted, AI gave him 2 suggestions based on his behavior and the way he interacts with AI and with what he was prompting it and asking it for. And it was me and one other agent. And he said, I talked to the other agent, I've talked with you, and I can tell you that is just, I have good synergy, and I feel like it helped me find the right people. And use ChatGPT, Steve. So that was blew my mind. But it got me, and I haven't really done much of the research, but it's got me wanting to see how you go about optimizing what you have online so that when people are doing research through AI, which more and more people I think we can safely assume are going to be doing that.
Yeah.
That you're being found. He read through some of the stuff that AI said about me and pulled offline. And he said everything. He goes, I loved seeing some of your food stuff that you've posted because to me it just said you're kind of ingrained with the community and you know local spots. And I figured somebody that knows local spots knows enough about the area that I feel comfortable with. It pulled some of the videos that I've done about just real estate and how to use data to your advantage. It pulled some of my Zillow profile that struck a chord with him. Like what you're putting online matters. And again, I haven't done the research yet to kind of go into how to really optimize your online footprint to ensure that it's speaking to your target audience. It's good. That's a first for me. I don't think it'll be the last. And I think more safe to say, like I said, people are going to be using that more and more to do their research.
Yeah,
Instead of just Googling.
100%. Yeah, I looked it up and it says on here one thing to note too that even if people are using Google, what happens when you Google something now? What's the first thing that pops up?
It's the AI.
It's AI. So even if you're Googling, you're still getting AI. So that's definitely something that maybe we can dive into that a little bit more in detail and make a call around it. But Nick and I both have done some research on it, and I've done more of like a deep dive into it. And the reality of it is, people aren't going to be able to pay for Google ads. I mean, you can do that on Google, but for AI specifically, it's not something that's paid for. Oh, you're never going to be able to pay to get your name at the top of AI. It's just not going to happen. So you have to do that organically through content, through what you have in your websites, the content that you're putting online, how you're talking about yourself, your reviews. So there's a lot of data that goes into it. But again, I mean, this is something that was proven to be true. People are doing it. So it's working. And I think that if we as agents don't start to take advantage of that and see it now, in 2 years, everybody's going to be doing that, and you're going to be left behind a little bit in that aspect. So something to add to your toolbox and make yourself, more prominent online for sure.
Deep dive into it a little bit this week. I want to make sure I'm optimizing my online footprint too, but I would guess that none of it had to do with posting listing videos. It was all stuff that it was like evergreen type of content, educational type content, stuff that I did for fun, like some food stuff. It pulled all this and kind of packaged it for you. So if you're not going deep with the way you're putting yourself out there to reach the target audience that you would want to, this would be a really good waking moment to start doing that or having a plan to do that because that's what AI is grabbing.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy wanted somebody that had local knowledge, and so it pulled some of the food videos that I've done and some of the data videos that I've done because that's kind of the way his mind worked. That's who I work the best with, people who like to kind of have that data approach.
And this isn't one size fits all either, because
Right.
you have one on here that just said TikTok humor, real estate humor, got a lead out of that too.
Totally.
I mean, I think it's just more or less like be present.
Well, I think what it comes down to is like you said it right. Like it's not one size fit all. You don't have to do what I do or what Brady does or what somebody else does. Be authentic for the target audience you want to identify with.
Yeah.
You want to seek alignment with. I'm probably not doing a whole lot of TikTok videos. It's just not where my target audience lives.
I've seen your TikTok.
I try to keep up with it. But my target audience, who I work well with, is like I said, that data approach, more of a local touch.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my content's going to reflect that.
I'll say one thing to not do, which is what everybody else is going to do, is don't go into AI and say, hey, I want to make some videos on real estate. What should I do? And then just do what it says, like be organic, be yourself, and then you can take some ideas out of there maybe and make them your own. But like if it says go online and make a video about, why you need to price your house, like that's gonna bore the shit out of people. So, be yourself. Be yourself, have some humor, do whatever fits you, because if you're trying to make a video on something that you don't care about or isn't you, people are going to be able to see that and they're not going to care about it. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Authenticity is key there. So everybody's target audience is going to look a little different. How people go about with their content is going to feel different for everybody. Do what's natural for you, so it's not looking forced.
Yeah, and also like if you have a family, a dog, like add that stuff into your video. Like people like to see that stuff. It makes them feel they resonate with you. A lot of people have families that say, "Oh, it's a cute dog," and then you're holding your dog while you're talking about whatever. Just be organic.
Well, it makes you
Human.
humanize.
Yeah.
Instead of being a robot talking about real estate nonstop, which quite frankly you're just going to become white noise if you're doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, humanize yourself. People do business with people they feel comfortable with. So show off, the personal side too. Some market stuff. So that was a cool thing, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Like I said, I planned on doing a little bit more research this week as to how you optimize that. But just wanted to touch on some market stuff too, just because it's seemingly changing pretty significantly every week. Last week we saw rates move on average, depending on who you check in with. They actually moved above 6.5. So it's the highest we've been since last fall, and it has everything to do with inflationary concerns. No other way to put it. No way to sugarcoat that. It's not great. It's not great, and it's not going to get better until this ends. This conflict ends. Um, what do we do with it? We just get ahead of it. I think we just, I think it's a good touch point for your clients. I think I said this last week or the week before, but your consultations needs to include volatility. Because it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to have somebody work numbers based on today's interest rates because they can change pretty drastically tomorrow. So you need to buffer in like, okay, so this is if you're comfortable with this payment, which equals this price point, that's at this interest rate. What if it were to change 3/8 of a point? This is how it would impact your purchasing power and your mortgage payment. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, I agree. A rate range. I think that's how we have to change our conversations with people, just so that we're prepping them for volatility in the marketplace.
I know that a lot of lenders are offering pretty competitive arms right now too to try to get, and you have to obviously explore that yourself and do a deep dive, but trying to get people in the door at, maybe a rate that's 2% lower and it goes up 1% each year until it gets back. Something to explore, but just definitely make sure to lay out what that means in the long run if your lender doesn't do that already.
Well, that's a good point, and it's definitely a way to go about it, but you have to let people understand or
Educate.
At least give them a heads up of the potential risk.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you're doing that with the expectations that rates will eventually balance back out once this conflict is over and the market kind of restores itself, which will happen. But the question is, when will it happen? And if you are doing a 3-year arm, I don't know how long this thing lasts.
Yeah, they could go back, and once it goes up to prime, it could be 10%.
So they have to be prepared for that and be willing to roll the dice. There was things were setting themselves up for the Fed to cut rates this year, and now I'm not so sure that's going to happen. At least in the interim. We've seen softer labor market that really was setting itself up for potential Fed rate cuts. But now with pretty huge inflationary concerns, Fed's not going to cut rates with inflation on the horizon now because of this. So this definitely threw a wrench into what the market was kind of setting itself up, what the economy was setting itself up for this year.
Wait, let me throw a hypothetical at you real fast. So let's say we just talked about for the buyers what this means, but let's say you as a listing agent, you had a listing appointment with somebody in January of this year and they were prepping to go live, let's say in April. How are you going in there and saying, are you looking, let's say the prices, the comparables are the exact same. So this was your number in January that you wanted to list at. You thought it was competitive. They agreed to it. Does that number change now because of the rates?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I would need to evaluate it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think. People are still buying. It's not that people are not going to not buy, but it is going to push some people out of the market. And we've seen that. Actually, my next bullet point here that I read this morning was weekly housing demand, which is measured by pending home sales and new mortgage purchase applications. They've showed signs of slowing down, which is uncommon for this time of year, but they're still up year over year from 2025. So they've decelerated, which is not what we want to see come April, end of March, but they're still up year over year. So it's not that people are not buying, but it's definitely impacting the momentum.
I think
For sure.
the buyer pool may be getting a little bit tighter, and in that buyer pool, I guess the way people go about purchasing, they're being a lot more picky right now because of what's going on. Inspections can be a little bit more thorough. I mean, if we didn't pull the data, but I would suggest that if you went back and looked at the data in Carroll County, there's probably a high rise in people getting seller contributions.
Yeah, I think more. I will say that part of that conversation is the percentage of listings seeing a price. Something else I read this morning. The percentage of listings seeing a price cut is actually down year to date this year than the same time last year. So the market had improved some, the activity. This is just kind of decelerating things a little bit. So how that plays out over the next few months, I mean, we'll see because there's a lag to this. The lead indicator is pending home sales and new mortgage applications. That's decelerating. It's safe to assume that some of these lag indicators like price cuts and things like that are gonna, a month or two down the line when they show up are gonna increase as well.
Yeah, I want somebody, if you guys have anybody that you're using lending wise that has a product that may be different that is helping people, go ahead and post it in the chat. I wanted to ask Nick if he's ever heard of this, but I had VA clients send me somebody that they were using. And he said, "Hey, I have this really cool product to help your VA clients be more competitive in a competitive market." And I said, "Okay, cool." He said, "What we do is we teach you how to write a contract that offers all cash for your clients, and then you assign it to us to purchase that. You assign it to the mortgage company. We purchase it all cash. We sell it back to them in VA." And I'm like, "Okay, so what's the catch? This sounds great, but what's the catch?" He said, "The only thing that they pay extra for is they pay transfer and recordation taxes twice, which is 10, 15 grand or something like that." So I mean, if we haven't done that yet, then I'm gonna have to compare apples to apples for if they just offered VA versus this product. But if that's happening, I mean, that's pretty significant. People going out and offering all cash, which technically it's
I've not heard that.
me neither. I was like, wow, okay. So if that's true and it really is just paying 2 times the transfer direct, I mean, it's pretty significant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've not seen that. I mean, I think you're going to see certain niche products like that come out soon to help kind of solve some of the affordability issue.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked.
Yeah. All that being said, things could be a hell of a lot worse. And I'm going to take you guys back. So those of you that have been on these calls for a while now have heard me talk about this. Those of you who are new, I'll try to keep this as easy to understand as possible. But mortgage spreads, they've improved drastically. And that's what's keeping things somewhat reasonable right now based on where Treasury bond yields are. So just kind of pull that out a little bit, give you an explanation. The mortgage rates shadow the 10-year Treasury yield. I think we all know that by now. The difference between the two is called the spread. The mortgage rate is always higher than the 10-year Treasury yield because mortgages are considered riskier than Treasury yields. So they bake that in, and that difference is the spread. Well, that spread can vary based on risk and volatility in the marketplace. Historically, spread is around 1.7. So rates are higher than about 1.7% higher than the Treasury yield. So, for example, if it were the historic average and the Treasury yield was 4%, mortgage rates would be around 5.7. But they're not there right now, right? They're currently around 2%. So I think the bond yield this morning was like 4.5 or 4.4 something. Interest rates are what? They're like 6.5, right around 6.5 right now. Well, if we were at the worst levels of 2023, where the spread was significantly higher, rates right now, based on bond yields, would be 7.75, almost 8. If we were at our worst levels in 2024, they'd be 7.4. And if we were at our worst levels in 2025, rates would be 6.2. So things could be a hell of a lot worse based on where those spreads have been over the last 3 years. So we're in a better place, which gives me optimism. Like if we can just move past this conflict, that we would see mortgage rates go down pretty quickly. But that's what's holding us together right now and keeping rates somewhat reasonable, even with the concerns on inflation.
I think we're at. I mean, this time last year it was at a lower. It was we were at a lower interest rate than we were this time last year.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
they were high sixes last year, so it could be worse. I'm still overall optimistic. We just gotta get an end to this conflict, which who knows when that'll happen. Anything else market related?
I had one. The one that I put under contract in Westminster fell through. And again, this goes back to maybe the volatility in the market, but they called back and went over inspections, and it was like, oh, there's asbestos tile in the basement, which, like,
Yeah,
everybody knows. It's like, okay, are you gonna tear it up and then be breathing it in, or are you can just put something over top of it? So it seemed like the person backed out, and they didn't really have a very good reason to, but they have inspection, so they can. It's from what I was getting from the agent. He was like, well, he just kind of like doesn't really want it anymore. And it's like, okay. So I'm wondering also if the rates might have something to do with that too.
so anytime there's a pressure on affordability, there's people are more sensitive to other things, right?
Yeah.
And they have more to choose from because inventory's going up. So I think people become flakier because it's affordability concerns. So they become more sensitive to other stuff that could come up that could cost them money down the road.
Yeah. Or the one that we all love where it's like something else comes up in the same price range and they're under contract and they're like, well, I didn't really get to see this one, so maybe we can go out and go look at this one. And it's like,
Yeah, I mean, I think that should be part of the consultation with sellers. Those of you that are going on listing appointments, I think that needs to be part of the conversation is like, hey, we are seeing a lot more pressure on transactions and the numbers would back them up. I don't have any recent numbers in front of me right now, but I've followed it and cancellations are the highest they've been in years.
Yeah.
And I think we all feel and have seen that. So there's not a whole lot we can do other than to prep your property the best we can to ensure that that we're mitigating any potential risk of fallout. And most of it's inspection based.
Yeah.
But I've seen more stuff come up on appraisals.
Yeah.
So the more you can do with home prep leading to go on the market, the better chance you are relieving yourself of issues down the road through inspections and appraisal.
Two things that I've added this year that I didn't do in the past. Ultimately, at the end of the day, how you prep this to your clients too, it makes me a little less money at the end of the day, but I also charge the 3 to even 3.5%, depending on what they would like in this package, is I tell them, hey, we need your house to look like the house that when somebody walks in the door and they like it, they're leaving, calling their agent saying they want to put in an offer or telling their agent they want to put in an offer. So we need to be the best looking house, the most impressive house on the market compared to the other ones on the market. So how I'm doing that is I have a pretty relatively cheap paint and drywall guy, and I have something where with my listing, I will have him go through, patch holes, patch anything in the drywall, do the touch-up paint, and have a cleaning crew come through and professionally clean it before we hit the market.
You pay for all that?
I pay for all of it, yeah.
At 3.5?
At 3.5. So, because it's like, it helps tremendous. I mean, it's like if your house doesn't have those things, then you're immediately going to be behind something that is sparkly and shiny right when you walk in the door. Depending on.
Are you getting people a choice? 3% or 3.5%?
Yes.
Here's the difference. Here's the value difference. And people are choosing the 3.5?
People are choosing the 3.5 because it is. I don't want to do those things. So I'd rather you just do it and I'll compensate you extra for doing these things because that comes along with the job. You got to set up the painter, you got to set up the cleaner, you got to nail everything down. And also, Matt Brown is helping me out with this. One of the windows had like one of those AC units in the side of the house, and then there was a kitchen in the basement of this house that had a vent. And I said, hey, I think it would be very advantageous to get rid of these things before you put it on the market because that's yellow and isn't working, and the other one isn't working, has stains all over it. So he went in, gave us a quote, and he got his guys to go in, completely take everything out, patch it up, and we're paying them at closing. So it's like one of those things where, hey, this is going to be detrimental. People are going to ask about these things. It's going to come up. take care of it now, pay the person to close.
So there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, cost isn't an issue. Well, cost is only an issue in the absence of value. How many people here are charging 3.5% on the listing side? Ed is.
It is.
Is anybody?
It's situational.
Yeah.
And you're confidently doing that because you're backing it with value.
Well, it's one of those things too where 3% is that's what I charge. 3.5 comes with this. But at 3, if you're not doing these things, I highly suggest that you do it yourself. And then they're like, well, I really want to do it myself. All right, then let me do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So identifying the problem and solving it for them. Does everybody see how that works? That's, even though it's a conversation, that's great marketing. That's great marketing.
Well, it's also, first inspection that comes up or first person that goes to make an offer. Hey, we're offering, $10K less because of the AC unit and the vent. We know we got to get those things fixed. Now those aren't conversations anymore.
Exactly. You're removing barriers and you're also solving a problem for a seller.
Yeah.
It's not only great service, but it's great marketing. And it gets me into one of the things I wanted to talk with you guys today, just because I finished the book and I know James is familiar with it. I'm going to show you guys. Can they see this?
Yes.
They can. Highly recommend you guys dig into this book, Building a StoryBrand 2.0 by Donald Miller. It's a marketing book. And it talks about how companies and people, professionals, most of the marketing we see is disconnected. And your marketing is probably disconnected too, because you're probably either being very confusing or you're getting lost in the noise. So if you're saying I can get you top dollar or it's a great time to buy, that's not marketing. That's not marketing. You're not marketing to anyone. You're just putting noise out there. You're also, the reason why that marketing is disconnected is you're making yourself the hero.
I would love to see the comments on it's a great time to buy.
Hit somebody in the head with a tack. In the book, and I'm going to try to give you just like a general overview, but it is a really good book. It talks about shifting to make the client the hero, and that the best companies do that. Thank you, James. Is that the book?
Yeah.
Into the book. Okay. Thank you. And every movie storyline does the same thing. There's a very similar template for the way movies are built out. But when you shift to making the client the hero, you're making it about them and not you. And you start with identifying what the client wants or struggles with, not what you do. Not what you do. You're speaking to them. You're meeting them where they're at with your messaging. So instead of helping clients buy and sell real estate, you're helping savvy clients buy without overpaying in today's volatile market. Those sound different, don't they? One addresses a concern. It comes across with empathy, but also authority. I've helped people through it. The empathy is showing that you understand that people are concerned about overpaying and the market's following. Brady did that with his marketing. He's identifying a problem and then he's providing a solution.
It works across the board too. There's not one house typically. I mean, there is some out there that you walk into that's perfectly ready to go, especially when people are taking things off the wall and having holes and stuff like that.
So you have to identify where the friction is for your clients, for your target audience. There's either confusion. Is it a good time to get into the market? Fear, overpaying. A lot of people are just overwhelmed. That's their friction. They're paralysis by analysis. There's too much information. There's too much noise. Your marketing should speak to that. I think, we all understand what demographics are, right? Age, income, where they live. But there's something called psychographics, which is what this is. And psychographics is, how does your target audience think? And when you can take time to understand like what their concerns are, what their goals are, what their roadblocks are, what their bottlenecks are, and then you curate marketing messaging around that, you're now speaking to them. Like I said earlier, you're meeting them where they're at instead of just throwing out carte blanche. It's a great time to buy. I can help people buy and sell.
Well, reframe it too, to put yourself in the consumer's view and take real estate out of it. Let's say Nick needs to find something for his kids. Let's say it's a stroller. He's got young kids and he needs a stroller, and that's in your mind, and you have a problem that you need to solve. You look up strollers online. What happens on Instagram? The ad that wins, that gets you to buy the stroller, is something that probably addresses your pain points and says, hey, buy this stroller because it relieves X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. It's the same exact thing. It's just now we're doing this with real estate. And we got to figure out what those pain points are for people that are interested in buying or selling.
And it's pretty simple to find out, because if you don't want to guess, go to past clients and ask them, hey, what was a big concern of yours getting into this process? What was the most difficult part of the process? What was the biggest bottleneck? And aggregate a list and then curate your marketing around that.
Even more so, all my touch points with listing appointments, I have a question on there because I sometimes forget to ask it. What are you most concerned about going into this? Before you even go into it, what are you most concerned about? Because then you already know.
Then you know.
And then the whole time you can address it and make sure it takes care of it.
In this process, in your marketing, you should be positioning yourself, according to the book, as the guide, the sage. You're not the hero. They are. And your marketing should show, like I said, empathy. I understand, and authority. I've helped people through this. But you're not the hero. They are. You want them to feel like the hero. It's their journey. You're just there as a guide. So as you scroll and you see a lot of agents, what they put out, they're putting themselves out as the hero.
I did this.
A lot of people do.
I did that.
Yeah. And the common mistakes are, if you're putting your production out there, or how great your brokerage is, or your stats, I'm not saying you shouldn't be proud of those things. You 100% should be proud of those things. But if you're using that as your primary backbone around your marketing, no one cares. And you're positioning yourself as the hero. The focus should be the client's problems, the client's goals, the client's desired outcome. You're the guide, you're the sage that helps them through it.
And what you're saying does both too, by the way. If you want to post, I just got this sold, then you're just saying I. If you post, this is something that we ran into during this deal and I wanted to address it just in case you run into it in the future. This is what came up. This is how we handled it. And we went to the closing table today and it was an awesome transaction. Yeah. Then they know that you're doing business, you sold that home, but you're also addressing something that they might have been concerned with or somebody else has ran into in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're telling a story, which resonates more with people than look at me.
It doesn't even have to be problems either. It could be wins. Mm-hmm. We just got this amount of money in seller help and put towards their closing costs. And it was a big deal because my clients going into it, they didn't have enough money to put down. So they needed.
Well, the way I would tell that story is so-and-so works really hard to get to this point. Yeah. So-and-so needed some help to make this happen. And we were able to kind of, however you would want to wordsmith this, tactfully go through houses, find the right one, negotiate closing help. They only needed to bring X amount. Maybe you don't need to share that. But you're making the client the hero. They work hard to get to this point.
You talking about a little bit of this right here, pulling out the heartstrings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that resonates more with the general public. And so, marketing audience, look at other agents, post emails and videos. Is the client the focus or is they the focus? Or you the focus? Is there a clear problem identified?
Well, the guy that called you, do you think he would have been impressed with your I just sold this, I just sold that content? Or was he impressed with you going around looking at restaurants in the area?
I just feel like we and I get it, we're fighting for mind share when people are posting stuff like that or putting stuff out there like that. No one's asking for your resume.
No. Or your stats or what you did. I've had friends actually say, and this is why I stopped doing it from the beginning when I used to do it when I first got started. Like the just sold under contract stuff. My one friend who does very, very well in recruiting in Denver, he goes, dude, why do real estate agents do that? You're the only business that says like, I closed this deal. And I tried to explain like, well, you have to show people that you're staying busy and you're in real estate. And then it hit me. It's like, well, you can do that without being that person that's like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And he was right. It's like, you're the only profession that does that.
You have to see any of my accountant friends say, hey, I got another tax return done. So it's not that you don't post those things. It's just that I think you're better served reframing it in way of a story and making the client the hero.
James is like, yes, no more under contract posts.
You should celebrate your wins, but you should be making the client the hero. It's their journey. So I hope that helped a little bit and maybe gives you a fresh take on potential ideas for marketing. I think that book would absolutely help with the framework around it. Those of you that have websites or creating websites, it gives you how to create it so that it's relevant and stays story based. He likes making posts. Okay. Uh, he likes it. But a really good book, a really good take on standing out, standing differently, telling stories versus sharing your resume constantly. That's all I have on that. Anybody questions or anything that stands out to them?
Yeah, we got 4 minutes. Do you want to ask? I guess we can't have people call live today until we figure that out. But
No, it was.
well, let them post. It'll probably take a little bit to post in the chat, so we'll see if people have anything to say. What are you doing now to like your game plan for this week? To now that you've seen, that you can draw a business from AI, outside of your daily routines that you always do for real estate. What are you adding in this week to dive into that?
I'd be lying if I said something super specific on it.
Kind of down
on my actual items for this week, it is to do a little research around it, and then I'll probably go from there. But specifically, nothing right now. Just I wanted to with the see what could be done to optimize it, and
Yeah.
then I'll come up with a plan.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of Gary Vee, and like a big thing that he has, obviously, he's more on the he works with a lot of people, but he's more on like the you're selling some type of product base. But he's also talks. He was at a Keller Williams event the other day, and one of his it's on Spotify, so I can find it and put it out into the lounge. But just talking with real estate agents about like if you're not posting content just about your area, your what you're doing to help people. He's like, I would. He said they said, well, you're telling people to make content, but we have all these other things to do. How much time would you tell people to put into their content creation every week for them to be successful? He said 65% of your time should be spent making content. And I said, wow. And they were all like blown away. He said 65% because the rest of the stuff you do, closing the deals, doing the back end stuff, but if you're doing 65% making content, your whole goal right now is to get in front of as many people as you can and earn business. And the best way to do it right now is through content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just the type of content that you're creating.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think too. It's like most of what we put out there as an industry is geared towards people that are looking to get into the marketplace. But how many of the people are actually looking to get into the market? You're talking to a very small amount of people that are even thinking about it right now.
Yeah.
Whereas if you come across as trying to be resourceful with what you're providing, whether you own a home or thinking about owning a home or moving, I think you're better served. Your content will get better traction than trying to force feed real estate all the time.
Well, I was just about to say, he also talks about, don't be yourself. Post videos of you, and the example he uses, post videos of you cooking asparagus. Let's say you're an asparagus guy. You cook asparagus. Some other guy that likes asparagus somehow lands on your asparagus cooking video, and then he clicks on your profile. You're a real estate. And he also was thinking about real estate. It's like, don't just post real estate stuff. Be a person.
Well, I think it. I mean, as funny as that sounds, what it could create is what is king in conversion, which is conversation.
Yep.
Using that silly example, if it's asparagus and it gets you a connection with somebody who also loves asparagus, it could turn into a conversation, and that's all what we should be shooting for. Is trying to create as many connections and conversations as possible with our marketing. I don't know that it just sold is doing that.
No, it's not. That's
So
it's a good one.
Yeah.
I will say, hey James, can you post a poll in here before everybody leaves and just say, hey, would you like us to maybe take a session on one of these Mondays or even maybe a Wednesday call to dive into how to go over this AI and the marketing stuff, and if people would be interested in that, because that's like a whole you could go for hours on that, but we can put something together if you guys are interested in that at all.
That was a very long request.
Well, just I want him to type that whole thing out too. There you go. He got
That's all you needed to say, dude.
Well, sorry.
If anybody has any questions or any needs, any crowdsourcing help, please put it in the chat. Do miss hearing from people.
Mm-hmm. A little bit. Well, once we do the call in, that'd be nice. Here's some peeps. I'll figure it out, right?
Yeah. All right, guys. That's all we have.
Yep.
We're up against it. Appreciate you guys joining us this week, and see you next week.
Bye, fam. We have to stay after class.